Bevor dieses Video losgeht, noch ein bisschen Werbung in eigener Sache. Ja, wie wir alle wissen, steht bald Halloween vor der Tür. Und dahingehend habe ich mir eine kleine Sache überlegt. Denn in der letzten Oktoberwoche, genau dort, wo Halloween ist, wird es bei mir auf Twitch regelmäßig Streams geben, wo ich etliche Horror-Games spiele, sei es nun Koop oder Solo. Freut euch auf jeden Fall dahingehend auf einige geile Streams und natürlich werde ich auch öfter streamen als sonst. Ansonsten habe ich mir noch ein paar kleine andere Sachen überlegt, da diese aber noch nicht ganz in der Planung fertig sind. Da würde ich sagen, seid einfach gespannt darauf und schaut vor allem an Halloween gerne meinen Stream vorbei, denn auch dort werde ich streamen. Und ansonsten würde ich sagen, viel Spaß mit dem Video. Ich glaube, ich gucke mir das sogar einfach an. Wir gucken uns an. How a 12-year-old became the best Trickjumper in Mario Odyssey. Kurz eine Sache dazu. Ich habe tatsächlich auch ziemlich viel über Mario Odyssey gespielt. Ich konnte so mäßig die Grundtricks so. Cap Throw, dann halt Cap Bounce und dann halt nochmal Cap Throw. Also halt so die Sachen so zwischendurch den Rainbow Spin und so. Ich konnte ein paar Tricks, aber halt nur die Grundsachen. War da nie krass drin. Aber ich finde es interessant.
And here's the crazy part. He's only 12 years old. But how did someone so young pull off such a monumental accomplishment? To understand Bruv's rise, we need to first dive into the world of trick jumping itself. So, what even is a trick jump? At its core, it's pulling off a jump going from point A to point B in a way that most players would think is impossible. It's simple in concept, but trust me, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Also das sieht zwar, wenn man jetzt das hier so sieht, gar nicht so schwer aus, aber hier ist wirklich jeder einzelne Pixel teilweise abgestimmt. Also wenn der mit dem Stick ein bisschen zu leicht nach links macht, dann klappt das nicht mehr.
And a question I always get asked is, why do people even trick jump? Why spend hours, sometimes days, grinding the same impossible jump over and over again? For some, it's about bragging rights. For others, it's about pushing the games beyond its limits.
Das ist sogar ein bisschen lustig, weil dieser Jump hier, den wir gerade gesehen haben, der galt, als das Game neu rausgekommen ist, als mit der schwierigste Jump, den du machen kannst. Mittlerweile machen die das so zum Aufwärmen, bisschen einspielen.
It's about bragging rights. For others, it's about pushing the games beyond its limits. I actually asked Bruv what motivated him to become the best trick jumper in the world, and he said he just found it fun. But how can we actually know who the best trick jumper in the world is? Well, that's where the difficulty ratings come into play. In 2017, when Mario Odyssey first released, people started doing trick jumps that they called impossible jumps. Take this jump called the Metro Impossible. This used to be the hardest trick jump back in the day. But now, as people have learned new techs and gotten better at the game, this jump is considered to be one of the easiest in the entire game. But how does this even happen?
Ja, also das ist doch so, den schaffe ich auch noch und dann hört es ganz schnell auf. Also danach schaffe ich wahrscheinlich gefühlt keinen einzigen. Geschaffen tatsächlich nicht bei diesem Schneejump, den ihr gerade gesehen habt, den die halt, wie gesagt, gefühlt zum Aufwärmen machen.
This jump is considered to be one of the easiest in the entire game. But how does this even happen? As trick jumping got more and more advanced, people eventually formed the Trick Jumping Discord server, where people would share jumps and rate them on a difficulty scale from 0.5 all the way to 10. 0.5 out of 10 jumps were considered the easiest, then 1 out of 10, then 1.5, and so on all the way to the 10 out of 10 jumps. But after a few years, people were getting even better, and they decided to add several more tiers of difficulty past the 10 out of 10s. These were called the elite trick jumps, and these were only reserved for the hardest jumps in the game. Even though the elites were extremely difficult, they were still very unbalanced, so they broke the elites up into several tiers of their own. The easiest elites were called low elites, and then the next tier up were called mid elites, and then after that there were high elites, and finally the hardest category at the time was called insanity elites. Even after these new category of jumps, people were just getting even better and better, so they had to create...
Das ist halt krank, also bei diesen High Elite und Insanity Elites, da sitzen die teilweise, ich kapiere das nicht, wie man so viel Dedication für sowas haben kann, aber die sitzen da teilweise, ohne zu übertreiben, Monate, jeden Tag und probieren das für mehrere Stunden. Die stecken da teilweise für 1000 Stunden rein, um einen Jump zu schaffen. Geisteskrank.
2 new tiers above Insanity Elites. And this is where the difficulty ratings stand today. The second hardest jumps in the game are called God tier. And then the hardest jumps in the game are the near impossible Hell tier Elites.
Digga. Jetzt
So
bin ich
let me
aber gespannt,
explain
was
the
gibt
different
hier.
types of jumps. There are 3 different types of jumps in Super Mario Odyssey. You have the triple jumps, the vaults, and the yellow jams. I'm gonna do my best to explain how each of these work at the top level of trick vaults.
Bruder, also es gab sogar, ich habe mich richtig lange darüber krass informiert und ich weiß jetzt zum Beispiel schon mal nicht mehr, was Yellow Dramps ist. Das andere davor kannte ich, aber Bruder, was zum Fick ist
I'm
Yellow
gonna do
Dramps?
my best to explain how each of these work at the top level of trick jumping. First off, we have the triple jump. We all know the triple jump on Mario games, but this takes that idea to the extreme. First, we start off with something called a roll cancel, which, well, cancels your roll. Then, you want to perform the triple jump, and top level trick jumpers use a tech called snapshot buffering. This is used in order to perform the triple jump at the last frame possible, getting you the max distance. Then, after you do the triple jump, they do something called a triple throw. Then, after the triple throw, they do a rainbow spin, and finally, they perform a cappy dive and perform the final dive. But it's not done yet, because they go into snapshot mode again. But why? Well, they're looking for something called an upwarp. Basically, what an upwarp is even though it looks like
Also Upwarp ist basically, wenn der jetzt hier jetzt auf diese Plattform rauf will, dann stoppen die manchmal halt das Gameplay, weil manchmal sieht es dann so aus, als würden die runterfallen, aber durch ein Game, Bug, Glitch, whatever, werden die einfach nach oben geportet. Also man sieht es bestimmt gleich.
you might not make the jump, you get a tiny boost
Genau,
upwards.
genau, das hier. Das ist sozusagen ein Upwarp. Also wo man eigentlich runtergefallen wäre, wird man einfach nach oben geportet, so mäßig.
Which can help make certain jumps possible. The only problem is that upwarps are random. The trick jumping community still doesn't know exactly how these work, so you kind of just have to hope and pray that you land one. Also, another tech that only the most difficult triple jumps use is a tech called moonwalk. Basically, by landing the triple jump while you're backwards, you can get even more distance. This is only a very, very top level tech though, and only the best of the best use this. The next jump type are the vaults. For these, you have to throw out Cappy and roll on top of him to perform the Cappy vault. And then the fun part is up. Top level trick jumpers use something called relax tech. By holding neutral on the control stick and shaking the controller twice, and then rainbow spinning, you can get a crazy amount of distance. After using this relax tech, you just finish off with the final dive, and then pray you get that upward. And then the final type of jump are called yellow drams. These are performed by throwing out Cappy 3 times for the triple throw, and then performing a long jump off of Cappy, and then using the relaxed tech I just talked about, and then performing the final dive with the dreaded upwarp. These 3 jumps make up nearly every trick jump in Super Mario Odyssey, and these are what Bruv SMO has truly mastered. Now that we understand trick jumping, it's time for the big question. How in the world did a 12-year-old become the best trick jumper in the entire world? Bruv started his journey just 3 years ago in 2022. He says it was his brother, and also a couple of my videos, that got him into it. So technically, I'm the reason he's the best trick jumper in the world. No, I'm kidding. But what's not a joke is how insanely fast he leveled up. Just 1 month after starting, Bruv landed his very first elite. Just a few months after, he had already landed his first insanity elite called True Lunch Gap. Not long after, he pushed even further and got his first ever god tier jump. It was called True Wood Vault Assault. That jump has since been lowered in its difficulty. But at the time, it was a god tier. But that didn't really matter because soon after, he claimed another god tier, True Gourmet Rise, which is still a god tier today. From there, the floodgates opened. Bruv just kept stacking god tiers. Reverse Aqua Pillar, Magma Climb, and several more. But then, he dropped a bombshell. He uploaded a video where he didn't just land 1 god tier, not 2 god tiers, but 12 in a single video, which boosted his total count to 23. And at this point, it was only a matter of time before he reached the ultimate milestone, a Hell tier. And
also, nur dass ihr das mal so checkt, ne? Also ich will es ja nur mal veranschaulichen. Also der hat jetzt einen Jump gemacht, da ist er jetzt auf diese Röhre raufgekommen. Wenn ich das jetzt probieren würde, ich würde vielleicht maximal bis zu dem Blumen hier vorne kommen. Wenn nicht sogar vielleicht schon bis zu diesem Grashalm. Die machen das auf so einem krassen Level, das ist... Ich raff das nicht.
Matter of time before he reached the ultimate milestone, a Hell tier. And just a month later, it happened. Bruv landed this insane Hell tier jump. Unfortunately, it eventually got lowered to a god tier. But that didn't matter for Bruv because only months later, he came back even stronger. First with Toad Attack, which at the time was considered the second hardest jump in the entire game. And then Ancient Staircase, another brutal hell tier. At this point, Bruv wasn't just some kid doing jumps. He was ranked among the top 20 trick jumpers in the world. But how do we know that? Well, the community tracks everything on a ranking spreadsheet, where each jump gives you points based on how difficult it is. Bruv's rapid climb through god tiers and hell tiers shot him straight up the leaderboard. But the crazy part, he was only just getting started. In the following months, Bruv would be landing the most insane jumps. He would get a hell tier called Rooftop Roundabout.
Ah, danke für den Follow, Shiki Caden, oder wie auch immer heißt.
Which was no joke.
Ist a reaction, ja.
He would also go on to get 2 more hell tiers called Ryder Provolone Pass and Tower Turnabout. On top of this, he would also be grinding out god tier jumps, and guess how many god tiers Bruv had at this point? 176 god tiers. From here, Bruv would get a new hardest jump, and it was called One Player Abyss. And just take a look at this jump, because it's incredible how people are even able to do this. If you've never really tried these jumps before, I highly suggest you should just try them out to see how
Den würde ich solche nicht mal ansatzweise schaffen. Also,
insanely difficult they really
da
are.
würde ich jetzt hier spätestens runterfallen.
It's been 4 months since he was top 20, so let's see how he's doing now. Yeah, so after just 4 months, he had gone from top 20 in the world to top 5. Bruv was so close to becoming the best trick jumper in the world, it would just take him 200 more points. And just a couple weeks later, Bruv was able to overtake Bell and become the 4th best trick jumper in the world. At this point, Bruv had all the skills he needed to be the best. All he really needed to do now was grind out some trick jumps. And that's what he did. Over the next 2 months, Bruv went absolutely insane and managed to complete every single main god and hell tier jump. And because of this, on July 2025, Bruv had finally done it. He had become the best trick jumper in the world at just 12 years old.
Okay, schon vorbei. Digga. Also es ist auf jeden Fall ein geiles Video. Ich werde den mal abonnieren. Bei Super Mario Odyssey, muss ich gestehen, kann ich mal wieder ein bisschen mehr anschauen. Ja, das ist auf jeden Fall gerne mal, wenn ihr wollt, ein Abo bei denen da, wenn ihr das interessant findet. So, ich werde jetzt aber auch reinhauen.